A list of the scariest movies came out a few days ago, and the movie that gets the heart rate up the most is The Host. And that got me wondering if there's a board game equivalent, one that's actually scary. So this is my top 10 board games that will get your heart racing, here on Legendary Tactics. So to make this list, the game can't be one that has a horror theme superficially pasted on, like Mysterium, Arkham, and Eldritch Horror, and Ghost Stories. And while they may be fun games, they don't really induce fear, and the mechanics don't really reinforce the terror. By definition, horror is something that causes fear, dread, and shock. And your time is valuable, so we're going to do this in under 8 minutes. My number 10 game is Mythos Tales. It's a game where you're an occult investigator. It's a lot like Sherlock Holmes' Consulting Detective, only much, much creepier. There's a lot of narrative to sink your tentacles into with this Lovecraftian journey through Arkham. If you want to capture the sense of telling ghost stories around a campfire, this would be your best board game to do it with. This isn't really great literature, but it still pulls you in, and it's pretty tense. Number 9. 2 games were vying for the number 9 position here. The first is Dark Souls, the board game. It's one designed around players needing to die, be punished, and suffer, and you may also know the video game. But the game I decided to go with is one that's both a board game and a video game. It's called Frostpunk. It isn't your traditional Frankenstein meets Dracula kind of horror, but rather a game of post-apocalyptic pure survival. You never seem to have enough actions to survive the premature ice age in the game. You control a little civilization, struggling to keep the heating systems online, feeding your people, eking out an existence, and watching your colonists slowly die. For the fear factor, I do prefer the digital version, but the board game is also quite tense and fear-inducing. Number 8 is Mansions of Madness. This game almost didn't make the cut. Like many other Cthulhu-themed board games, sitting around a table with friends in a well-lit room isn't really as immersive as a video game, where you can play with the lights off and the headphones cranked to 11. However, the reason this one does offer a degree of spookiness and surprise is the app. Terrifying events will befall your party, and the app allows a surprise to catch you off guard. This one is rated 14+, and I could see how some kids, and maybe even some fearful adults, might find it a little much. Number 7. It briefly crossed my mind to include Ultimate Werewolf or One Night Werewolf on this list, but I've never really found them that frightening. However, a social deduction game needs to be on this list. In the number 7 slot, I've chosen Salem 1692. Thematically, I think this one offers more of a chance for players to immerse themselves in the game since it comes out of our real history. This could devolve into a series of comical Monty Python references about burning witches, or, if the players are more theatrical, it could become a Hunger Games style hunt. If you really want to amp up the scare factor, add some music, dress the part, and play this game in the shadows where it belongs. Number 6. This list wouldn't feel complete without an RPG. But which one can you sink so deeply into that it feels hard to climb out? The game is Dread. It was published back in 2006. You likely haven't heard of this one. It's not that popular, but it is based in a horror setting, and your goal is to survive. You really connect with your character because you have to answer a series of questions to actually decide who you are. The innovation of this game is that it uses a Jenga tower to resolve your actions. As you go deeper into the quest, the tower gets more and more precarious and your chances of failing escalate. You can actually see how tenuous your situation is. Also, if you die, you're out of the game, so there are real consequences and thus real incentives to stay alive. Turn the volume up and the lights down. You know the feeling you get leading up to a jump scare? Well, some board games have tried to simulate that. Perfection, for instance, where the game is on a timer and all the letters pop up. That's a great example. Another one I played as a kid was Curse of the Cobras, where you extract Ankh keys from the game, and your arm has to reach through these 2 cobras that they'll strike your arm if you take the wrong one. However, these are cheap scares, not Hitchcockian suspense. So instead, I've selected the game Nightmare from 1991. It's most certainly cheesy. It also uses terrible game mechanics, but hey, this list isn't about great games. This is about scary games. And I remember playing this when it first came out, and it was absolutely terrifying.
Last minute chance, maggot. You want to play the game? My game. When I call your number or color, you will be punished!
Whew, chilling. Number 4. Perhaps the scariest TV show in recent memory is Stranger Things, but how do you port that into a board game? The answer is Stranger Things, the Ouija board game. You'll never catch me playing this game, and I fully confess, I haven't played it. But that's the point. I am too scared to play this game, because Ouija boards freak me out, and talking to the upside down in Stranger Things, that isn't something I long for with those creepy Christmas lights on the wall. So these boards, Ouija boards, have been around since 1891, and they purport to communicate with spirits. So I'm not gonna mess with that. And moving on to number 3. If you're getting value or enjoyment from this top 10 scary games list, we'd really appreciate if you could stab the like button there to help our channel grow. In the number 3 spot, I've chosen a game that starts out all fun and friendly, but then the betrayal happens. I didn't think of this game as that frightening, but when that shift happens, some of my kids decided that that was the point they no longer wanted to play this game, and I saw it from a whole new perspective. One formerly good character suddenly turns evil and is pitted against the rest of the opponents. The clock starts, the narrative sets the scary context for the betrayal, and the race to stop the evil begins. It brings out real emotions, and it adds a fun twist to cooperative gaming. It pulls out all the tropes, and hey, that countdown to victory begins the minute the betrayal happens. It's lots of fun. Number 2 on my list. The digital edition of The Fury of Dracula is reminiscent of the game Scotland Yard with the Transylvanian twist. As the hunted, you're constantly being tracked, and it feels like you're always just one step away from being caught. As the hunter, you're running blind, trying to stop Dracula from spreading chaos across Europe. The soundtrack intensifies the experience and creates a real impending feeling of doom. And check out our strategy guides on playing as the hunter or as Dracula. The link is in the top right of your screen. We are on to my number 1. To fit the definition of horror, the game must induce fear, dread, and shock. And the game that offers real horror for me, it's not a Halloween-themed game, it's not a Lovecraftian game, but rather it's one that's based in the real world. This War of Mine is a game that will shake you to your core. Many people will rightly refuse to play this game because it weaves a narrative that's almost too reminiscent of the atrocities going on every day around the globe. The scenario where I played as a father trying to scavenge for food and provide shelter for his daughter in a war-torn world, I could feel my heart pounding as my character's desperation increased. So imagine how I felt when my character died trying to steal some food. Thanks so much for listening. Let me know what games you would add to this list, and subscribe if you like our style. Thanks so much for your time.